So the Custodes hate the Primarchs, and the Emperor is fake? Like the Wizard of Oz? These insane revelations and more are from the new short story The Carrion Lord of the Imperium, the final story in Era of Ruin. So, the final story in the Horus Heresy. And I have to say, as a Warhammer 40k fan for over 37 years now, I was totally blown away by some of the things in this very short but very crucial tale. The Carrion Lord of the Imperium may just be the most important piece of Warhammer lore we've gotten in years. Possibly ever. Told as a series of journal entries by the Adeptus Custodes Diocletian, one of the 300 companions of the Emperor of Mankind, we get a glimpse into the mind of the Guardians of the Emperor, and the revelations are staggering. For as loyal and unable to deviate from the Emperor's intentions for him as he is, Diocletian Coros has his own thoughts, his own will, and his own agendas. Still within the confines of what the Emperor did to him genetically to create him, and uplift him into an immortal warrior of the throne, but nonetheless, this story shows us the Custodes are their own individual selves in ways that not even the regular humans of the Imperium are. Dio, as his friends call him, is very close with Ra, Amun, Khan, which is what the Custodes call Constantine Valdor, Xerxes, and others of the first handful of Custodes. He's been there since the very, very beginning, taken as a youth to be perfection incarnate, and turned into an immortal space demigod by the Emperor. Dio gives us a glimpse of when everything went super bad, super quick. But it comes down to the creation of the Primarchs. For when the Emperor decided to undertake the Primarch and Astartes projects, he consulted his companions, those Custodes which he deemed fit to be more than mere advisors, as all the 10,000 were, but those chosen to be his inner circle. A practice that would later damn the galaxy when his sons emulated him, as the Primarchs, especially Horus, allowed warrior lodges and secret societies to flourish throughout the legions, which is how chaos crept in. And the last of the Custodes which he heard from was Dio, and Dio thought to himself that it was a terrible, terrible idea. All of the Custodes did. They knew it was a situation where warp juice was being spilled and dark pacts were being made. Dio knew, as all the companions did, that the Custodes should be leading the Emperor's forces on the Great Crusade to conquer the galaxy. But remember, this is taking place during the end of the unification of Terra. The technobarbarians have yet to be fully quelled, and the Thunder Warriors are the shock troops of the day. And the Custodes want to lead human troops in the Emperor's name, not abhuman genetically modified super soldiers, but regular men and women. They know that it is what would be most impactful, and know that the Primarchs and the Astartes the Emperor plans to make are going to ruin everything. But only Dio says his own personal truth, that despite what he may think, despite what he wants or knows to be true, he feels the Emperor is going to do it anyway. So what's it matter? He just shrugs basically and says, "If you're going to do it anyway, what's it matter if I approve or disapprove?" And that's the last guy to speak out of 300 dudes. 299 already said, this is a very bad idea. It shows what kind of guy Dio is, and why he was raised to tribune after the death, or rather disappearance, of Ra Endymion. He says his truth, and he says what they're all thinking but not saying, which is just baffling to me. I had no idea that the Custodes had that sort of autonomy of thought. Funny enough, this story also shows that they have emotion as well, including doubt, sorrow, and even joy, though it is the emotional spectrum of an immortal being. And that is a real big theme in this story, immortality. And we get to see how the Custodes see themselves when it comes to that, and they know that they are not able to die of old age, ever. They were truly master-crafted, individually, and built to last. One scientist studied a Custodes' blood for her entire mortal lifetime, and there was zero change in it at all. They age to the optimum age, and then they're good from there, which they feel sets them aside from lesser beings, which to them includes Primarchs, who are not meant to last, but to do a job and then perish, and Astartes, who are just mass-produced and inferior as far as the Custodes are concerned. But this story takes us through different eras. And one in particular we see is Guilliman ruling as Lord Regent of the Imperium. And he's giving some speech and bloviating, just pouring on the G-Man charisma and all that. And Diocletian is just thinking about literally killing him. He's thinking to himself that Guilliman needs to shut up. And if he's gonna say one more douchey thing, that he's gonna shank the Primarch. Even though it will totally start some major shit. Dio's come to the point where he's heard enough, and he isn't fully confident that he can refrain from destroying the Primarch. And then Guilliman speaks to him directly, sort of snapping him out of the state he was in. And he says one thing, but we get the thoughts that he wishes he could say. And they are spicy. I mean, the Banana Boys are capable of keeping some hot tamales under those conehead hats of theirs. Diocletian Coros hates Guilliman. He sees him as an affront to everything that is holy, as inferior, both as an idea and genetically, and he only sees treachery waiting to happen when he looks at the Primarch. He scoffs at the idea of a Primarch leading the Imperium, as they are all prone to corruption, as half of them fell to chaos, and even the ones who didn't acted like toddlers arguing over who was more deserving of their father's attention, especially Guilliman and Dorn. It was a real revelation to read this, to know that the Imperium's balanced on a fine blade, and the Custodes hate Guilliman and want to take him out, just out of principle. Yes, the Custodes are exceptionally jealous of the Primarchs and of the Astartes, as they are imperfect beings who are more likely to mess things up than set them straight. Yet they get all the glory, get to lead the fight in the crusade, while the Custodes are the unsung heroes. Dio wants to know where Guilliman was when Terra burned, when the Emperor died on the Vengeful Spirit. He wants to know where Guilliman and the 13th Legion, the Ultramarines, were during the war in the Webway, and why they weren't even told about it. He wants to know why, if Guilliman was so trusted, if he's the true heir of the Imperium, why he wasn't even told of the Webway project. And he wants to know why Guilliman considers the Emperor his father and feels loss for him. He goes on that Guilliman should only feel the loss of the scientist who created him, as he is no son of the Emperor of mankind, but an abomination whose true fathers are in the warp, and are overcome with joy that he and his brother Primarchs are doing a good job. He is calling out, if only in his thoughts, the gods of chaos as the true fathers of the Primarchs. He sees them as basically greater demons and rejects the notion that the Emperor put his own power, if even a shard of it, into each Primarch. He does, however, weigh this over and realize that maybe each one does carry a shard of the Emperor, as each one is a stubborn, imbecilic, childlike figure who, despite being gifted with 1,000 IQ, can hardly tie their shoes. And those are traits of emperors and kings, that each of the Primarchs is a mini-emperor, and that is why they cannot and will not ever get along or agree. Dio knows they are beyond help and just wants to slay Guilliman out of principle. But since the Custodes are perfection made flesh, and they live forever, we get to see him in the modern setting of Warhammer 40,000, ostensibly. And since he is the tribune of the Adeptus Custodes, we are treated to something that only he can see, or only he has access to. And this is the perfect way to end the entire siege of Terra, and indeed the Horus Heresy, with the final scene. Now, Dio is a dreamer. He has dreams and knows that since he does, the Emperor intended that for him, as none of his other brothers do. And he's plagued by the visions he has sometimes, but sometimes he shrugs them off as just his subconscious getting some rest and wandering, etc., like dreams are for us. Though it must be said that he's probably seen the end of the Imperium and the death of humanity in his dreams. And the Tribune goes to the throne room, and we see the giant corpse emperor looking like he does in the classic John Blanche artwork. Tubes and wires hooked up to a huge space lich who is connected to a massive machine whose size defies all explanation. It is so enormous. But that is all a fake. A show for the masses. Diocletian goes into a very secret door that only he has access to. He has to surrender a drop of his own blood to get the door to open, as it only responds to the blood of the tribune of the Adeptus Custodes, and it still takes an hour for all the locks and mechanisms to open. And when he goes inside, we get to see the real Emperor. It's like the Wizard of Oz, sort of. The fake out for the people, and the real space wizard in the back hiding, but he really is dead, or undead. Dio is unsure which, and he's just a skeleton in a chair. The Golden Throne is just a regular chair for the most part. And looking upon the God Emperor, Dio knows he is not alive anymore, yet not dead, and knows that the power sustaining him is all the psychers they feed him, and that his hunger is ever growing. It dawns on Dio that the Emperor enjoys the feast, which according to the book Cypher Lord of the Fallen is thousands of psychers per minute now, rather than per day. It's a literal industrialized process at this point. And following throughout the whole story, we see that Dio is aware of what the Emperor is. He knows that he is serving the galaxy's ultimate evil, that what sits in that chair, the withered husk of a corpse, is holding back the Dark King. And inevitably, the throne will fail, or the Emperor will die, or both, and the birth of the primordial annihilator will shatter the galaxy and the Imperium. Dio knows that the being that gets all that worship, that is proclaimed as a god, is fallible, that he should have listened to his true perfect creations, his Custodes, and never made the Primarchs. He kicks himself for not having been able to stop Horus from slaying the Emperor, for the state of the Emperor on the throne, for the state of the Imperium, for how the galaxy became a cesspool of superstition and devolved into the stagnation of the current Imperium. And though the Custodian thinks all this to himself, though he knows that he is eternally bound to serve that which he holds in contempt, and will do so loyally without hesitation, he still lays his weapon at the feet of his king and asks the Emperor one question: "Do you dream, my lord?" And that is how the entire Horus Heresy ends, with a Custodian who sees through all the bullshit, who's been there from the very beginning and is still around even when Valdor is not, asking a simple question: "Do you dream?" I think he knows the answer, and knows the Emperor's existence is a perpetual nightmare. He is suffering physically in ways that cannot be measured, and his psyche is fractured like a shattered mirror, but the vampiric hunger, the galactic scale thirst he has for the souls of psychers, even Dio knows that is something absolutely evil. He ultimately knows that good or evil, right or wrong, savior or extinctor of mankind, whatever the Emperor is, was, chooses to be, or is becoming, it's all irrelevant. For whatever the case may be, he's bound by both sorcery and technology, by the Emperor's will and his own genetics, to serve eternally. His loyalty is incapable of faltering, but that doesn't mean he cannot see clearly exactly what it is he's loyal to. Dio knows the nature of the God Emperor better than probably anyone. He has access to the real throne when nobody else does. He knows the darkness that the Emperor is merely the avatar of, and his mind is disdainful of that. Yet it is who he is, who he was made to be. Dio knows the darkest secrets of the Imperium, but unlike anyone else, he's equipped not only to keep them, but to keep his own sanity in doing so. For if anyone has looked deep into the abyss and seen the truth in the void, it's Diocletian. But we can derive from this that Constantine Valdor holds many of the same opinions, and that he is privy to at least as many truths when it comes to the Emperor. For we do know that Valdor mostly considered the Primarchs to be unworthy man-children, whose petty squabbling among one another was capable of sundering empires. He did finally accept Roboute, though, but that was after they'd been through quite a lot together, and their bro-off moment consisted mostly of a few "you still suck, but not quite as bad as I thought" comments. The Custodes serve a being they know is going to destroy mankind eventually, but is all that is holding it together at the moment. They saw firsthand what the Emperor can and will become, and it sounds like they have a contingency plan in place for every possibility. One thing is for sure, it would be awesome if the Custodes turned on Guilliman and kicked off another civil war. So what implications does this have for the King in Yellow storyline? In my opinion, this makes it that much more likely that the King in Yellow is actually Constantine Valador. And we have 100% confirmation that Custodes can hate the Emperor they serve, or at least view him as the totally evil space lich that he is. Interesting that while they cannot disobey him, they're still free to hate him, to feel what they want to about him, and about the Imperium, the Crusade, and what they're doing. In my opinion, this doesn't change much, but it changes everything. It gives us concrete, solid proof that the Emperor that humanity gets to see is a fake, an effigy, a puppet to gawk at and pray to and worship. Dio hates hearing all the prayers, the constant worship, the adoration of the faithful. He knows the whole religion is a lie, that there's no happy afterlife at the Emperor's side for those who die, only a terrible, hellish existence in the warp as you're consumed by and tortured by demons for eternity. So yeah, we finally get a real good look behind the curtain. And let me say, I am absolutely impressed by how truly dark it is. Yeah, sure, it's grim too, let's not forget that. But Warhammer 40k just reminded us that it is the darkest setting out there. I give this story a 9 out of 10. It was a wonderful way to wrap up the series and ends on a total banger. The insights alone are worth the read, and even though it is only an hour long in audiobook, I feel like there's more lore in there than most full-length Warhammer novels. I mean, there are ramifications that ripple throughout the setting with every sentence practically. But the ultimate moment for me, even beyond the scorn for Guilliman being revealed, is the fake Emperor revelation and the true Emperor just basically being a rotted husk in a plain chair, hidden from view of everyone, just sucking down souls like there's no tomorrow. What do you think? Are these revelations truly meaningful, or are they like the Custodes' opinion of the Primarch project? There, but going to be ignored. We've heard it rumored for years that the Emperor is hidden and the guy on the throne people see is actually just a statue. So it is amazing to see that confirmed and absolutely true, instead of just something we can speculate on. Oh yeah, and it was also finally confirmed that even though he's claimed it to be the case sometimes, the Emperor did not, in fact, have a hand in creating the Golden Throne. I love when Warhammer 40k lore hits me with a left hook I just didn't see coming and I'm seeing stars. It really is what makes this setting so great, and one I've been coming back to over and over again for going on 40 years. You know what? All that said, let's bump this one up to a 10 out of 10. To say it absolutely delivered is a true statement, and though I was reluctant before, I have to be honest with myself. The Carrion Lord of the Imperium is as good as it gets. Aaron demski-bowden knocked it out of the park. Highly recommended, inquisitorial approval for the Emperor.